Hello, good evening, and welcome back. And so it begins with the inclusion of transsexuals into the Olympics, as there was a fury over a decision to let transsexual enter Tokyo Olympics from New Zealand, as their female weightlifters reveal they are told to be quiet when they complain that a woman will lose out. Yes, this is all for the sake of inclusion and diversity. Now, this is for somebody who transitioned back in 2012, and the legal standing is that provided you have a concentration of less than 10 nanomoles per litre of testosterone in blood over the last 12 months, then you are essentially a woman and therefore can compete. Now, there are a couple of problems with this, and they almost go one against the other, but nonetheless, there are a couple of problems, because men and women have a few more differences than just testosterone. Of course, that's known as the male hormone, and then you have estrogen as the female hormone, but nonetheless, they both exist in both genders, of course, and obviously they do slightly different things when it comes to muscle mass and bone density and brittle bones as well, but trying to reduce biology down to just these two chemicals is a little bit reductionist. But the other point is, of course, that if testosterone is such a driving factor, then the benefit that you've had over decades of testosterone won't be undone by just 1 year of having less than normal, by having a female amount. And the other thing is that some women do, of course, have quite a lot of testosterone naturally, and therefore there have been cases that because of this transgender mandate, that biological women, have not been able to compete unless they inhibit their natural testosterone because they are naturally too high. So yeah, you do end up having a few difficulties going that way. But the main thing that they're going for here, and this is what New Zealand is trying to push, and I'm surprised that Tokyo are accepting it, and to be quite honest, I don't think they will. When push comes to shove, they will find another way in order to decline access, whether that be officially or unofficially. I'm sure they will find a way around it. Japan is Japan, after all, and if they're hosting, they're not going to want such a record on their books. Seeing as this weightlifter had set a record before in the men's division when he was younger, and so of course using those skills and strength and development when transitioning to a woman, of course, means that they've taken gold and silver several times since. Hardly a surprise. But the point is this: when it comes to inclusion and diversity, that what's what? Okay, what I mean by that is, of course, if you've got the male-female division, then you've of course got to say that the women are victims. Victims of what? I don't know. I suppose having things done for them. But then there's supposed to be another category that the trans community, the T on the LGBT, even though that's not sexuality, but nonetheless, that they want to have their own group in order to say that hate crimes against them are even worse. And hey, if you look at the amount of domestic violence in trans relationships, then they've definitely got a point. But again, that's just trans on trans crime. But nonetheless, they want their own special group in order to have their victimhood points and enable it to be used as a currency to lord over other people. But at the same time, of course, if they're trying to fit into the predetermined genders of male and female, then they're kind of losing out on that one. And especially, of course, if it's supposed to be women are oppressed, and yet you've got men transitioning to women so much, then so they want to be oppressed. I mean, it doesn't seem to be very well thought out. Although, truth be told, if they're going down the oppression line, it is more common for the women to transition to men, and then of course realise that what they were fed was a lie, and after surgery it's a little bit too late to try and go back and say, oh, actually, life wasn't so bad before, and it isn't actually better now that I've transitioned. Well, this is a bit shit. And similar to how we've seen political lesbianism, that there seems to be political transsexuals as well, just doing it to prove a point, and some bizarre, backward, non-understandable way of thinking. So into the story in detail. New Zealand transgender athlete Laurel Hubbard, previously known as Gavin, is set to compete at Olympics. Hubbard competed in men's weightlifting competitions before transitioning, but former weightlifter Tracy Lambrex has said women are being silenced. Those that complain, she said, are being told to be quiet if their voice concern. And just to wrap up, just because there is quite an interesting parallel here, if you're thinking of other Olympic trans athletes, maybe Bruce or Caitlin will spring to mind. Because there's a history of bad driving, and I know it's easy to make the joke of transitioning male to female is going to make you worse at driving. And here are photos of the athlete. I mean, if you would really say, oh yeah, that's a female. I mean, now we've got before the transition and after the transition. Do you see a transition? Never mind. And then we go, oh yeah, that actually looks like a female. And then you go, oh, it's somebody else. It's Tracy Lambrex, female. Fair enough. There we go. Look at that. Beautiful female specimen. Maybe not. But yeah, driving. Right, cool. So, this was after the transition, bear in mind. And I'm not saying this to say that they shouldn't compete in the Olympics. It's just a funny aside. So, if there's humour, let's find it. In October 2018, they were involved in a car crash near Queenstown, leading to 2 people being seriously injured. Charged with careless driving, causing serious injury when his car crossed the road on a sharp bend, hitting a vehicle carrying an elderly Australian couple. And the victims, Gary Wells, 69, spent nearly 2 weeks in hospital for nearly 2 weeks, and... spent nearly 2 weeks in hospital for nearly 2 weeks. Genius. Get an editor. And required major spinal surgery, while his wife, Sue Wells, had several broken ribs. I guess they weren't doing so Wells. The victims have since spoken about how they were appalled at the lenient penalty given to Hubbard after he was discharged without conviction, ordered to pay around $13,000, New Zealand, so £6,500, and disqualified from driving for 1 month. And that was it. Gotta be lenient on the trans there, haven't you? That's it from me, so let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think, yeah, it's about time that we put trans into the Olympics in order to try and just get more people red-pilled and understanding what is going on, and let's push it to the forefront before it becomes accepted, simply so that there's going to be sufficient pushback? Or if you think, no, let us not let it get to that stage, let us stop it right here, right now. Either way, let me know down below. Always intrigued to what you guys have to say. And of course, as always, until next time, have a good one.